Record. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Unlocking Excellence with your main man, Eric Schwefel. I hope that you're having a great day today. If you made it here, you're looking for tips, you're looking for tricks, and you're looking for those keys to unlocking the best life that is possible for you, right? And today we have a special guest, y'all. I am so excited. You can't see him unless you're watching the video, but we have a very close friend of mine, somebody I've known for a long time, Mr. Colin Odle. What is going on, brother man? How are you doing today?
Doing good, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's really good to see you. It's we've known each other for a long time, and it's cool that we're still talking and catching up too.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So y'all, Colin and I have known each other for over 10 years, maybe even closer to 15. A while ago, his family moved in across the street in the neighborhood, and I want to say we picked up pretty quick, right? We had the whole crew and everything like that, and we became friends pretty quick, and we dove into a whole bunch of different things. We went through the skateboarding phase together. We used to play. I mean, I told you I was going to mention it, man. So apologies for anybody who thinks you're super, super crazy tough. Now they get to hear how tough you really are.
I'm a nerd, bro. I'm a real life nerd. Like, it's love.
He would pretend he was Daredevil and I was Spider-Man, and we would fight. And then we had the Jedis, and then we had Pokemon, video games, secret rooms and houses in the attics. I remember that, where we used to play cars and stuff. I mean, Sims. And then life started happening and we started growing up, right? I want to say it was at least high school for me. I want to say as you got into high school, you started making decisions, but there was one really big one that I know I was super proud of, was media trends. And then media trends happened, life started happening, chumps, and now you are where you are. So I covered a lot there for the audience to give them a general view, but now I want to throw it over to you, man. What's going on? Tell us maybe a little bit about the past, but what I would love to do is to know, who is Colin now? You know what I mean? Because that's a tough question to ask. Very tough question. But to start off with the high school and then the media, depending on how much you want to get into that, and then we'll start kind of diving into where you are now and the growth and everything that's come along from there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, who am I now? That's definitely a hard question, and I'll just speed it all, not necessarily speed, but I'll just kind of like drive everything towards that. But as far as high school goes, and like you mentioned media trends, so like technically, see, high school for me was like, I mean, you hit it on the head. It was like, that was the moment that it was like in my head that like I felt like, oh, I get to make decisions now. You know what I'm saying? Although like it might have not been the reality, or it might have not been healthy, or it might have, you know what I'm saying? But it's just like, that was just the first moment in my life that I just genuinely remember confidently feeling like entitled to the fact of like, no, these are my decisions now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And with that being said, truthfully, like in the beginning in high school, the majority of high school for me was, believe it or not, was like a survival. It was like, what's that term, like fight or flight? I don't know if that's even, that might be a little dramatic, but truthfully, it was really like a survival, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Experience? It was like a survival tactic or experience. Yeah, for sure. And what I mean by that is like, I went to private school my entire life. So that was a very, in hindsight, I can understand as an adult, like in private school, like you're controlling the variables as a parent. You know what I'm saying? Like you are increasing and decreasing the odds of certain variables to be like likely to happen or not likely to happen. And the reality is like, that's not really like real life. So like I grew up with that experience, or like that one side of it, but I was fortunate enough to have like neighbors that went to public school, and you being one of them. Yep. So come high school, the moment that high school started, it was like it's like I had caught wind that there's this thing called public school, and like the idea of it sounded insane. Like it literally sounded insane. So like after just like enough, just like showing up and like that's literally it. I was able to like leverage myself out of the situation of like, hey, this doesn't logically make sense to invest this money over here because like I'm wasting all of it. And in hindsight, it's, it's like it's horrible to think about, but I'm just reflecting in the moment, and it's like naturally that's just how it felt.
Yeah.
So I would then eventually like transition to public school, and I literally remember the first day. Like I tell people still to this day, like at 30, like in my mind, and the reason why I reference it to like a survival thing. Hold on, there's my little daughter right there.
Yeah.
Look at mom. Can I say hi real quick? Yeah, Zay wants to say hi real quick.
Hey, what's up, Z? How are you?
Good.
Good to see you. Are you having fun? Excellent. Excellent.
Come on. Shut the door on the way out.
She's so cute, man.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. See
Hi,
ya.
Sure.
Bye-bye. Hi.
Gotta go.
That's too good. That's too cute. So y'all, just a quick pause of what he was saying. We're right now in high school, and his daughter just came in to say, hey, that's significant.
For real.
We're recording a podcast and your daughter came in. I mean, that's
yeah.
That's how far we've come, or you've come.
That's crazy. It is. So anyway, I just like high school for me, just, it was not, I'd be lying if I said like it was my, some people, that's their glory years, that's their prime time, that's their, I might have faked that funk, but the reality is for me, it was like, it's like everything I moved out of fear, but I would never show that in real time. So like what I mean by that is like first day of public school, I walk in and I'm 20 minutes early. Where do you go? You go to the cafeteria. Well, all right. Well, there's now, instead of there being 200 people here, there's thousands. And you're looking around like, where do I go? And you're like, yo, you got this group here, that group here. Like, honestly, I hate to compare, but if you can understand the framework, it's like prison in a sense of like everything it's like a social environment built off of cliques. And in that moment, I'm literally like, I'm looking around and I'm just like, oh my goodness. And, I'm like, boom, oh, I know that person over there because he lives now. All right, boom, that's where I'm going. And from that day on, it was just survival.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is, strategically building relationships with certain people. If I saw somebody get in a fight with somebody and it didn't go well for one kid, well, that person that fought him, I'm like, it'd probably be in my favor to build a relationship with that person. Not as if like, I also had this like blind confidence, like, but if anyone play with me, like, I'm not scared of nothing. But in reality, it's like, no, I'm moving off of fear. So let me just be strategic and build these relationships just to prevent the odds of it even happening. And honestly, that's how I operated. And yeah, in hindsight, I could see, I could see a lot of how a lot of that carried over. But at the time, like presently in high school, like it didn't add value because as far as like work and focus and grades, it was not even on my mind. I mean, I was there for the social construct, and that was it. And I just needed to survive. And truthfully, that was it. So because of that, I would end up, with the popular cliques, and then I'd be making decisions of what parties I wanted to go to and what girls I wanted to be around and this and that. And so I guess coming out of that, that didn't last long. Sophomore year, basically the principal sat down with me and was like, look, you're a good kid. You're obviously not out here getting in fights or like doing, bringing drugs into the school or anything like worth actually being expelled for. But at the same time, your grades are so like useless that you're just wasting space here. So they recommended, they technically gave me two options, and they said, you could go to Jumpstart or you could go to YCP. YCP was like a 6-month military school where basically, your parents sign you over to the government, you live there for 6 months. And if you focus and can achieve it, you can get your GED in the process. And then so basically all I heard out of that as a kid was like, wait, so you're telling me all I gotta do is 6 months. And then when I get done with that, like I'm done with school for life. Right. So like keep in mind, my friends are like going into junior year. So I'm looking at it like I'm about to finish early. You know what I'm saying? Like, it went from like a failure to like, I could just get this. I just was so anxious to start life, bro. I wanted to work. I wanted to, it's kind of silly because now I try to like presently, like my own kids, like my daughter and like, I want them to like stay a kid and not, not necessarily grow through that. But that's just where I was mentally. And the other option was Jumpstart, which I wasn't too familiar with, but I was familiar with kids that went there, and it never like I had enough like emotional intelligence to realize like, well, I'd never seen anyone make a positive out of that or like come back and then finish. And it just didn't feel like I had a lot of options, truthfully. And the YCP thing was like, I looked at it like time, and it was like, can I survive 6 months, and adapt to that framework, what I'm saying? Which, in my opinion, I was already doing that with public school anyway, coming from a private school.
Yeah.
It's like, as far as navigating through it and whatnot. So I would then go and do that. I would get my GED, and I would come up out of that. And now at that point, I'm technically a high school dropout. And honestly, during that time, like, entrepreneurship was not, it wasn't this big trendy thing. It wasn't, the idea of dropping out, and just the idea of having a GED and not a high school diploma was like very frowned upon during those times. I mean, this is 2011. And this was coming up out of it. But even then, like, I had friends whose parents would tell me like, man, you don't want to work in, basically the society made me feel like without that high school diploma, even if I had a GED, the only thing for me was McDonald's, which I would end up working at McDonald's when I got out of YCP. So, I had a taste of a lot of just little regular miscellaneous jobs, but society was trying to plant it in my brain that like, that was the cap for me. And for a small window of time, I was going along with it. Looking for warehouse jobs because I'm like, I'm putting myself in this box of like, this is what they say I could do.
Yeah.
Warehouse, but they tend to make a little more money anyway. So I could survive that. Right. And
so let me ask you this real quick. So in high school, it sounds like you weren't a bad kid at all. It's just you had your priorities differently arranged.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like it sounds like you wanted to connect a lot more than to perform for authorities that, and words are inexchangeable, right? Like teachers or whatever, but you didn't want to perform in that sense because it was like, what am I doing here? Right. And then for whatever other reasons, blah, 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 the idea was to connect more, and then to this, like you said, this survival tactic. So the 6 months was 6 months. You didn't have to go back to school. And you're right, society does place that type of stuff on people all the time, like this is the only thing that you can do because this is the options that only these other people have had. It's like, well, I'm not those people, right? So as you were saying after, okay, so you got the GED, you had a couple of odd jobs going into the warehouse, and those are tempting too, because back then it was what, like 15, 18, 20 bucks an hour. You're a 19, 20-year-old kid, not even. Yeah. Like you're strong, you're able-bodied, essentially. You're not holding your back when you're walking. So please continue.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, especially in those times, minimum wage was like $7.25, which I don't know what it is currently, but back then, like, that was what you saw people actually making, was $7.25. So if you saw somebody at that time that was like $10 an hour, it was like, oh wow. And then I would then work at one warehouse, for doing furniture, and then I would get smart enough to. Here, come say it again, huh?
Good luck.
Thank you, baby. Close the door. So I would work at one warehouse, furniture warehouse, and then, it's funny reflecting on it. I at least had the sense back then, as a high school dropout, to like leverage the fact of like, all right, well, I worked at this one. Let me go holler at this one. This furniture warehouse and see if they'll pay me more, So next thing you know, it's like you're at $12, $13 an hour. In those times, man, that was, like your parents were proud.
That's pretty badass to be able to change. And I wouldn't even say it's changed because you had a certain opinion of yourself, but to take what people think that is going to happen to you and then to make something completely different about it. You know what I mean? Because right after high school, most kids are like, oh, what do? I should go to college, or I need to find a job right away. There's not the hustle aspect that you had to it.
Yeah. Well, there's one thing I can say. Like I said, I was just anxious to be an adult and whatever that was. And I would then have to go and figure out what that actually meant. But from my short perspective, you know, like working was one of them, and having my own money, and then being able to like drive my car to a McDonald's at 11 o'clock at night. That's what I wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? These are all, it was just very small things that like I didn't take for granted. I actually wanted, I was hungry for it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That hustle aspect was always there. You got to keep in mind, even when I was in high school, you know, I would buy Skittles from Sam. I would sell those $1 a pop. And I remember, you know, in 1 week making enough profit to like buy like a wireless router for my computer, because, you know, my mom wouldn't pay for it at the time. She was like, you figure it out. And, you know, at that time I was so hard on RuneScape that I was like, I'm gonna figure it out. I would then go to Sam's, buy the Skittles, flip them at school, took the profit, and then bought the wireless router. You know what I'm saying? Even after YCP, while I was still working normal jobs, at, you know, I must have been 17 at the time. I would find like a wholesale distribution online for like women's fleur-de-lis, like costume jewelry. And this was like right around the time when the Saints won the Super Bowl. And I was ordering that stuff online for like very, very, very low cost, and then selling it at like a 70% margin, like in person. So I would order it, I'd go on Facebook, I would connect with people that like knew me from school, or maybe they knew me from somewhere. And then I would find out if they wanted to buy, you know, I'd post the pictures. If they wanted to buy it, I'd contact them directly, like try to meet with them in real life. You know, the girlfriend I was with at the time, she was still finishing school. So I would send her to school with a bunch of product, and then she'd be meeting up with people. So honestly, like that aspect of it it's always been there as far as like the hustle. It's just, I had this thing where it was like, I could hustle. I just only want to hustle what I want to hustle under my terms. And life has been me just figuring out what are those terms, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, golly, I hope y'all re-listen to that, because that was filled with so many golden nuggets and so much information that he just put on. I mean, really much so, which is amazing that you experienced that so young, and then you're carrying it over. You know, there seems to be this unstoppable, I want to say force inside of you that's like, no, I'm going to figure out what feels right to me, because this don't feel right. So a while ago, maybe it was conversation in the street at our parents' house, we talked about the differences between us, because we see differences not only between you and me, but differences between who we are compared to society. And one thing that I mentioned to you that my dad said was, when he was in the Marines, he would look at people, and one thing that he would think is, just because you have 2 arms and 2 legs and a head don't mean that you're anything like me. You know what I mean? Just because we look similar doesn't mean that we are similar. And internally, so I remember mentioning that to you, and you said, yeah, man, similar mentality. So, and where I'm leading to that is, you knew that you were different, right, than those in your surrounding, and then those that you interact with in your environment. So what were some of those traits that you may have noticed, or reflecting back that you notice now, that separated you?
Honestly, just reflecting back then, it was really just like, the hustle was obviously one aspect of it, but it was the passion. It was like, I was so passionate about whatever it was that I was passionate about. And like, I would dream so big. And look, a lot of this might sound cliche, you know, maybe in 2022, but the reality is, like, this was before YouTube even was like YouTube. Like, you know what I'm saying? This was before Instagram was so you didn't have all these visuals that like the world is blessed with today, where like you could wake up now and just like your TikTok feeds like the most motivating visual ever that could just like set off dopamine, just be like, I can do that. And then you could follow that up with a documentary of somebody like Mr. Beast, who like spent his whole life just trying to figure out YouTube, and then turned it into this crazy you know, world that he exists in now. There was a lot of visuals. There is a lot of visuals currently now, which for me, like, that's visuals are very motivating for me. Like, and that's something we lacked back then, was like the visual proof. The only visual proof we had was like when you get that visual degree, and then you get that job because you had that degree visually. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I guess reflecting on it, like, understanding that the times were different then, but still being able to like relive the amount of passion and like dream that I had in my head, and then how I would then like carry that how I would then translate that to execution, and then like while also navigating, figuring out like what is execution, like what does that even look like? That's when media trends came along, and that was just me like, I mean, that was just me literally figuring it all out. But it's crazy because everything that I figured out from a framework standpoint perspective is literally everything. It all carried over to presently. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it was never time wasted by any means. And I guess to be specific, you know, media trend started out as web design. So the fact that I'm legit here, you know, I'm smart enough to go on Twitter at the time, which wasn't near as big. And then I'll just do a broad search of, you know, web design needed or web design. And then now I'm cold calling essentially, and reaching out to anybody that might have even posted anywhere in the database about possibly needing a website. And I might do that 300 times in a day for hopes that maybe 3 convert to a conversation and maybe 1 converts to a sale.
So 300 tweets, 300 messages for the hopes of 1%.
That's it. So when you ask me,
y'all hear that right now. Y'all hear that. You got to put in the time. All right, sir, please continue.
So I mean, it's this little nuggets of moments like that where I could look back and be like, wow, like I definitely, that's how I knew I was different. Because keep in mind at the age, when I look around, all my friends from high school, like I was in with all the cool kids, you know what I'm saying? But I look around and with how they were living their life, and it just, you know, I was the oddball at that moment. The moment that I like checked out of like the normal society of like, let's go to the club, let's do this at the party. And then I like went into my own world of like, let me try to build something and figure this thing out. Right then and there, I knew I was different because the way everybody else reacted, and I don't take nothing, there's no resentment or nothing, but the reality is like nobody could see the vision at that time, and I don't blame them. And yeah, man.
That's all it is, man. We've talked about that too off camera, of course, of how you grow and how relationships can change. And without diving too far into it, you start to learn that one's values, meaning the individual's values and beliefs, start to change because of the growth that takes place, right? Like a 5-year-old business owner is not going to think the same as a 20-year-old business owner. They might have some fundamental principles, but it's vastly different because of all the mistakes and the learnings that the 20-year-old business owner has had, right? So the same thing with you. And it sounds like you're a fast learner, and it sounds like you change very quickly in the sense of, this isn't working, this isn't effective, this isn't delivering the results that I want. What do I have to change in order to change the results? And you were strong enough to make those decisions. Because I mean, speaking on my own behalf, I'm an emotional guy, you know, I end up staying attached and whatnot. So it takes me a little bit longer to move. But it sounds like with you, I mean, you knew what you wanted, which was a big factor. You were passionate about it. And then you moved, right? And I'm sure that there were ups and downs along the way, and this, that, and the other. So media trends, I remember this, media trends ends up developing, media trends ends up changing, and it ends up morphing. And it sounds like, and you've mentioned this before off camera, everything that you did is kind of building itself up to where you're headed and where you're at now. So with media trends, before you get into it, you got the passion, you got the hustle, you got the willingness to put in the work, you know, the ins and outs of profitability, of service, of apparently having a few employees, quote unquote, you know, hey, I'm going to give you this, you give me this, right? Media trends comes up, you're following designs, you're looking to get those things in. It leads to some pretty big things.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, initially media trends was, this is what you got to realize. When I came up with the concept of what media trends would be, I was also an 18-year-old kid working at Best Buy. So I was able to, because I was in the computer department, and I was, you know, my job was not, it was to sell the computers and whatnot, but the real job was, you know, they wanted those credit card signups, you know what I'm saying? And that's what they wanted me to push. So me being the type, you know, me being a high performer naturally, that's something I would end up I stood out big time, even in that space of working there. It's like I was that guy when it came to whatever that role was that I was supposed to be playing. And in the midst of that, that's how I learned about. That's really how I learned about credit cards. Not in the best way, but I at least understood the system as far as how what I type into this computer is going to dictate what I get approved and what I get approved for or not. But at the time, I would, I was living with my girlfriend at that time, and I was able to again, you're going to see a lot of like moments in my life where like leveraging came into play, and it's not always good, but it's clearly, it was naturally there.
Right.
I've gotten a lot better as an adult, like how to like navigate that in like positive lights and whatnot.
Yeah, of course.
But it all came from a good place, just because, like I said, I was extremely passionate. So I was able to essentially convince, my girlfriend at the time's mother to co-sign for me on a Best Buy credit card. Nice. And because of her, her being an older woman established with a house and paid her bills on times, and me being just this 18-year-old kid dropout with a dream, her putting that name to it, when it ran through, it was like, $5,000 you're approved for. I was like, at that time, bro, that was like major. Yeah. Especially at one moment, you know what I'm saying? No, and at that time, 18-year-old kid with the ability to spend $5,000 like as a whole, that was unheard of. I knew some people that went to college and got the loans from college, and they'd have some money that they could go buy a bike or something. But this was a big moment. And
5K to an entrepreneur. I mean,
you
know what I mean?
My mindset at the time was, now that I got this card, now that's when I would go buy the iMac, and I would eventually get a little camera. And I was buying my business expenses, and I started out as web design just because it was something that I knew how to do. The only reason I knew how to do it was because, when I was younger as a kid, I'd play like online games, and then I'd get so passionate into the games and the culture and the community of the game that I would be the guy that like started a clan, and then I would go start the website and the forum board for the clan. So that was just like natural, honestly, just like from the nerd side of me.
Yeah.
Once I figured out like, all right, well, I know how to do that, so maybe I could like convince people to give me money to do that. I remember telling myself, like, the moment I can make enough as much money doing web design as I do making whatever I made every month from Best Buy, then I'm quitting.
Yep.
And sure enough, that time came, and from there it turned into, I always had, hip hop has always been like a huge, it's just another one of those things I was always very passionate about, from a culture standpoint. Like, it just was always there. I truthfully, I don't even know how, but like, it was like, when school would let out, I would be like rushing home to try to get home in time to watch like 106th and Park. They would do like the top 10 video countdowns. Like, I was always fascinated by that. And at this time, while my web design and stuff, in my head blowing up, because I'm like, dude, I made as much as I did Best, but I quit. Like, even though I wasn't smart enough to be like, let's see if we can consistently average this out so we can be safe and not take, I was just like, let's go.
Results. We got them. We can keep them.
So it's like, I had that momentum coming behind me.
Yeah.
Like I said, when no one else sees the vision, in my head, I'm like, I'm getting confirmation from the universe. Like, this meant everything to me. I knew I from that moment on, I knew I made it, because I'm like, if I could do this, like, it's just scaling at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
This was also around the same time that like Mac Miller was on his come up, like from like early underground to like transitioning to like signing with Atlantic Records and then like popping off. So I caught that wave as a fan early on the underground side. And I'll never forget, I would watch his music videos on my iMac while I was like web designing and stuff. And at the beginning of every video, it would always show like the logo, and it was Tree J TV. And I would always see that logo every time. And then in my head, I just, the music culture was always dope, but it was like, let's be practical here. Like, I can't rap. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to try to do that to myself. So I never thought anything beyond it. But as I would watch those videos and I would see Tree J TV, I would then like go down the rabbit hole and figure out, who is that guy? Where's his Instagram? Oh, that's a white guy and he shoots videos, and he shoots the videos for this guy, and he's like good, and they're just buying cameras from like that I sell before, and I'm connecting the dots. So instantly my mind started thinking bigger. And then I in my head, I wanted to convert this thing. The vision was for Media Trends to be an agency, which I didn't even really know what that word meant at the time. But to me, it was like, we're not going to just be this one thing. We're going to be an umbrella of multiple things.
Right.
So I was so fascinated by the Mac Miller videos that I would then, like I said, go out and get the camera. And then I would then reach out to other local artists in Slidell that I would see, whether it be through Facebook or, to be honest, I don't know how I found the most of them. I had no relationships with anybody in this world whatsoever, but I would just start like cold calling the same way I was on Twitter, trying to find web designs. Like I'm DMing like local rappers, and I'm just like, hey, I'll shoot your video for free. I've never done this before, but like, this is something I want to do. And it would just go like that. And then I would build that relationship. The people would like genuinely like me. And then it would just evolve. I
got to take a quick, go ahead.
So, I mean, that ultimately like transitioned into like, I remember the moment. So after doing that with the local people, and again, understand, I'm doing this consciously for the same framework that I did the web design, in the sense of like, for me to sell my web design, I just needed a portfolio. I just needed one website you could go to that said, this is everything I've done. Does this look official to you? Do you trust me? All right, well, give me some money and then I could do this for you. So I was doing the same thing all over again. I didn't see it no other way. So I didn't care that I wasn't getting paid by these people. So I would then go do all of this for these people for free, create the content. And then at the time, the radio stations were still like a big relevant thing. So in where we're from, you had Wild Wayne with Q93. Yep. So I would then, after I built my portfolio, reach out to Wild Wayne, because Wild Wayne was throwing events every month called Industry Influence. And it was like a networking conference, but within the music culture.
Wow.
I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to be in that door. So I basically reached out and was like, hey, I'm me. You've never heard of me. I'm nobody. Here's my catalog of videos I've made. I want to do videos for your Industry Influence for free. Again, I just wanted to have access into the room. And yeah, that was like a huge moment for me at that time. Like I remember him coming out with the flyers, and they put my little logo at the bottom of the flyer, and it was like, you couldn't tell me nothing during those times. You know what I'm saying? And I remember like it was yesterday, after building the relationship with Wild Wayne and now becoming like a part of the Industry Influence, now I'm leveling up from like local rappers to like local rappers with buzz, to then like, oh, local rappers that maybe even might have made it. You know what I'm saying? Because now they're all coming through the door of Wild Wayne because he's with Q93, but I'm there because I established this relationship with this man. So I'm listening to what they're saying. I'm learning. I'm filming, I'm getting more reps in, editing, filming. And then I'm also building the relationships. I'm getting pictures with people. So that's making my Instagram look more official. You know what I'm saying? So that maybe more people will spend money with me because they'll take me more serious. And again, keep in mind, like I said in the beginning with high school, I'm still really operating out of fear, even in my business, because like I said, like I'm just trying to create this image to where you could take me serious, because I know how much I take myself serious. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. And so this is so intriguing, man. I realized that you and I were similar, but listening to this and really hearing the details and kind of reliving, right? Because I watched you this whole time. I'm like, look at Colin doing Media Trends. Oh, that's a cool logo. Oh shit, he's got this person. Who's this, right? So I had my own commentary. I've been watching a lot of Dave Chappelle recently too. So the way that I comment is like Dave in my mind, right? Like, oh, what was that? You know? And so what I'm taking in, I'm taking in a lot, but one of the things I'm taking in is how much of a connector you are. And me too, man, like connection, right? Like, how does this connect? What's the pattern? What's going on here? And noticing how much of a connector you are. And then two, you set out of fear, and my coaching brain is coming in. It might've been out of fear at one point, but then it was learning, right? Because through my own process too, right? Having work and going through all that, starting my own business, I'm like, all right, well, first thing I need to do, and I've hired several coaches through the years, and they all tell you the same things. Once you learn the foundation, like you said, right at the very beginning of this podcast, you got the foundation, and then it goes into each and every piece or avenue that you're in, right? Because once you learn how to master, you just take the same lessons and you apply it to different fields, and then you master those fields, but you're a master nonetheless. So the way that I went about building my gym, right? Hey, let me train you. I want a free testimonial, this, that, and the other. Okay, cool. And then you start training people for free, and then they start paying you, and then you get results, and then you post your results, and then more people come, blah, blah, blah. The same thing with the gym, right? Oh, I don't have a building, and then these people start coming. So the universe, God starts working with you. And when you have this intention, the opportunities start reflecting. So it's just so intriguing, man, because here you are, I want something, I don't know how to get it, I'm going to figure it out. When I wanted to leave the gym, I had a timeline. That timeline was accelerated by about 4.5, 5 months. And I had to leave the old position without actually having I had to take the leap without any guarantee that the leap was that I was going to survive. Yeah. And when I took that leap, I was like, okay, well, this is the thing to figure out. This is the result you want. I can get it for you. Will you give me money? Yeah. Okay. Let's do it. And then they get the result, blah, blah, blah. And then it just builds and builds, and then you refine. So it's just so cool to see how young you started this, right? And making money from it, and then how it carried on. And then how you, to me, kept your humility through it, because it would be very easy to say after, hey, I never did this, but I want some money to do it. Right? Like, pay me. I'm going to give you a video on a product. Wild Wayne, right? But that's how you get in, is how can I serve you and produce for you to the point where now you want to associate with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's what it is. And it's an exchange. Now that you want to associate with me, I'm not going to try to get shit from you anymore, because I done gave you everything. Now we're together. So you might give to me. And now it might not be the exact same shit, but it's going to be in a way that it's going to be beneficial for the both of us, because you know that I'm here to benefit you. And I know if you kept me around, that you're here to benefit me too. And we're here to win together. Yeah. All right. So thank you for that, for letting me kind of summarize. So you're making, you've associated, you've gotten with, and for y'all that are listening internationally and outside of Louisiana, Q93 is a pretty big station out here, right? For hip hop, it's like the #1 station for hip hop, unless things have changed in the last few years.
No, that's accurate. To the point, iHeartMedia, they bought out the entire network, and they own Q93 now.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah. So it's big. Q93. Yeah. It has a huge influence.
Yeah, man.
So you're connecting. Wild Wayne says, cool, I want you here. You're starting to talk with people, with local rappers and local artists who have a buzz now and who could actually make it, right? That's about where you left off. And then from what I remember, some developments started happening in this world.
Yeah. So also at the same time of this, I don't even remember how, but all in the same time, I randomly decided, because as passionate as I was, and even with the motion that I was starting to attain, I'd be lying if the confidence was like really. There still was like lack of confidence as far as like, how does this play out for me? Like I had confirmation of like, okay, I know that I'm meant for, like, I know there's something more, but I had not yet had that confirmation of like, oh, this is the thing, this is it. So because of that, I guess I was like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, a little bit, in the sense of like, I went to Delgado Community College for, I think, 1 semester for business administration. And, I remember at that time, my teacher in the business class, she owned the what's that ice cream shop down Gauze? It was pretty big.
Was it Marble Slab? No,
that's like new culture stuff. Like this was back. Was it Baskin Robbins?
Baskin Robbins is one. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I think it was Baskin Robbins. So I think my business admin teacher for that college
was an ice cream.
Baskin Robbins, and she was super cool. And but anyway, all during this time, I'm also going to this community college while I'm doing industry influence every chance, and I'm doing the websites, and I was trying to do it all.
Busy.
And honestly, I don't even know why I was. I had no clue why I was in college at that time. Outside of it, just honestly, it just was like it allowed me to fit in a little bit more, because I'm already looking like an oddball because I was always promoting my stuff. I wasn't just creating and connecting, but then I was like promoting it to all through Facebook. Like, now Facebook, there's like etiquette-ness to it. It's like, hey, this is Facebook. This is for like you to connect with your local peers. If you want to like promote creativity, go to Instagram. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But back then it was like no holds barred, at least for me. So I was just pushing out content and spamming people and messaging them my videos that I made, like people that, they might have knew, they went to a different high school. It made no sense, but I didn't care. I was just like trying to put it out there.
Right.
The views and have any kind of metric that I could gauge to give me more momentum that I could feed off of.
Y'all take a second and hear that. Any type of metric that you can gauge yourself and feed off of, hear that. Please hear that. Continue, sir.
Yeah, man. So I'm putting in the groundwork. I'm trying to balance everything out. I'm still kind of lost. And I remember like it was yesterday, around this same time, Kevin Gates was a local artist who had recently just got out of jail.
Wait, for the viewers, I have to do this for the viewers. Colin, the Kevin Gates.
Yes, for sure.
2 phones. One for the plug, one for the load. That Kevin Gates.
Yeah, that one for sure.
Wow. Okay.
He was fresh out of jail. He was still on his grind as far as like, he was just another local artist, just like all the other local artists I was working with. He just had like where he was from, which was Baton Rouge, his town was just starting to back him more than these other local artists. So that made it feel like, there's something going on here. And then on top of it, I'm a big hip hop stan. So personally, when I caught wind of his music, I was like, it was so different. You never heard nothing at the time. Honestly now, and reflecting in hindsight, it's like there's a little bit of him in everything you hear today. Like, because he took melody. I'm not gonna say started it, because I mean you had Nelly and you had like other people even before that like brought melody to the forefront with rap, but he took melody to a different level, I feel like, and he was one of the first artists to like really show humility and be like, I know I look like this, but let me give you perspective that you would never fathom of my own vulnerabilities. And then let me do it and portray it in a way of like hip hop and dope melody. So like that was, for whatever reason, I connected heavily with that early. This is before he blew up.
Well, Kevin, even watching him now, of what I see, one, you totally got another side of him. But from what I understand of Kevin is a very wise individual. He's a rapper, he's an artist. So there are going to be things that he does that people don't agree with, obviously.
Emotional.
Right. And but he's got wisdom, and he knows how to deliver that.
Correct. Yeah, I'd agree big time. And at this time, so I catch wind of him, and again, I'm, it's only in my nature to be, I like to call it cold calling. This was like my version of cold calling. I remember like it was yesterday. I was living off of, I'm living with my girlfriend and her parents at the time. So I'm like straight like living off of them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Plus like doing my thing independently, just trying to make my own little wave and trying to pay the little bit of bills that I had. I had a car note and stuff. I wasn't paying rent or nothing of that nature. So I was able to do all that. And I remember like it was yesterday, I was sitting there playing NBA. I think it was like 2K12 or something on the Xbox. And I had a moment, and I think I was like waiting in between another game, and I was on my phone and I was on Twitter, and I had just got on to Kevin, and I seen a tweet from his Twitter, and the tweet put out a number, and it basically said, hey, essentially what it was, and now I understand what they were doing. It wasn't even him, it was his management, which was his wife at the time. She was posting from his account saying, hey, we're in Mississippi, so if anybody wants to spend money and book us for a show or like pay us for a feature, like this is the number, contact us. I remember being in my boxers playing NBA 2K12, and I saw that, and I took that number and instantly texted and was like, hey, my name's Colin, I make websites, I can make your website for free, I'm a fan of your music, woo. Now,
I don't know if I ever knew how y'all connected. That's awesome.
That's how it started for sure. Now I will be honest, like the whole connection of it all is very blurry because there's different parts of it. But that was ultimately like the birth of it. So then they would end up replying, and then they put me in contact with their assistant at the time. So then I would go, that would then lead to a conversion, you could say, where now I'm, having a meeting at Copeland's in New Orleans with the assistant. And we're just going over everything that they want to visualize for this website that I pitched, that I said I was going to make to them for free.
Yeah.
And I remember leaving that meeting and they cut me a check. I had to make 2 websites, actually. It was for their label and for him as an artist. And I remember them cutting me a check. It was like $500 a piece. So it was like $1,000. And I remember like, I was mind blown because, like I said, I was going to do it for free. Like I just was, again, I was trying to connect. I just was trying to create that connection.
Right.
So they would end up paying me. I would do it. I never had any communication with anyone but the assistant at this time. And then that happened. I did the job, and it didn't really turn into anything more than that until Kevin was booked to be the main speaker at Wild Wayne's Industry Influence, which I was already there, right? So now I'm like, yo, when I see him tonight, I'm gonna let him know, like, I'm the dude that made the website or whatever. And but by the time that happened, that already like he already knew who I was. So by the time I introduced myself, he was already aware, and he was just like, I never forget it. I was mind blown. He was so nice and like uplifting, and was just like very grateful for, what it was that I was doing. He was just extremely nice to me for no reason. He didn't have to be, you know what I'm saying?
That was Kevin?
That was Kevin, yeah. So this was at Industry Influence the night that, he was paid to perform. I think he spoke a little bit.
Wow.
That was like our first official time meeting after the fact. I had already done a job for him.
Right.
And yeah, he was just super cool and super nice. So
wow.
That night happened. We kind of, I got a picture with him that night, and we kind of like, established who each other was. And then moving forward, it kind of just like, we just kind of went separate ways. And, but again, I was transitioning to the video side of things. So I ended up, I would then continue to watch him in his camp. And there was somebody that was always with him, and his name was Menace. So I noticed that anytime I reach out to Menace on Twitter, he would always communicate back. So later on, I'm pretty sure I would like reach out to him saying like, hey, I know y'all got a camera dude already, because I watch all of y'all's, they were putting out these like vlogs, just like Wiz Khalifa and Mac Miller was on their come up. So like now Mac Miller and Wiz Khalifa, they've already established. And now I'm watching Kevin do the same thing that I just watched these 2 dudes do. So I'm reaching out to Menace like, hey, I could be that visual guy for you guys if that's what y'all are interested in, because here I am cold calling. No one asked for this, and I'll do it for free as usual. That was the constant, that was the constant play. You know what I'm saying? And sure enough, Menace was like, yo, word, definitely. And, Menace connected all the dots. And from that moment on, the camera changed everything, because the camera is what gave me real access and connection, because now anywhere he would go, I would be there. So, and because he was so hot at the time, other artists would want to be around him or want to feature with him, or maybe he would do a show with another artist. And so the connections just started to like grow to a whole nother level.
Yeah, that's wild. So for y'all listening, right, man, that's wild. So, I mean, Mac came out with The Kids, right? I can't remember the exact title of the song, but that was one of his first releases.
Yeah.
Say again?
Yeah, The Kids was that was the mixtape, I believe. Or was that?
Yeah. It was one of his first releases. I wish I could remember off the top of my head. But so watching that, and that was still around the time where the independent artist was starting to really take off, meaning It wasn't just Britney Spears wasn't presented to you. You know, the boy band NSYNC and Backstreet Boys aren't presented. I mean, this is like individual. Yes. And then with that, I mean, hip hop has always really had that, you know, you got to sell your CDs out the car. You got to build your reputation in your city, and then your city uplifts you. So you got to experience pretty much all that. I mean, Kevin seems like he was an established rapper at the time, not necessarily who he is now or what he grew to be, but you got to really experience that. And I remember you saying you were on tour, you were moving all the time. It wasn't necessarily the healthiest with eating either. I remember you telling me that, fried chicken all the time, canes and all that delicious stuff. But it was basically really hurting the inside of your body, right? Meaning you're just not staying healthy. So this was by no means a negative experience. You got to connect, you got to network, you got to learn, I'm sure, a shit ton, right? Experiences that you'll never get anywhere else because of how unique that was. If there's anything that you want to mention as far as that, and then, you know, those experiences, what touring was like or anything like that. And then where did this ultimately start to lead you from Kevin to what?
Next thing.
That's saying.
Meaning, like, where did this transition to, like, from Kevin to like whatever that next thing is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So notice how you said, like, it wasn't, you know, the eating and stuff was bad, but this wasn't necessarily a negative experience because you gained all the connections and, you know, all the positives of it. That's something I didn't realize until, like, honestly, like maybe 3 years ago. Like, I didn't really start seeing the positive of all of that, like, flourish in my life until like maybe 3 years ago. Because what actually that then would lead me to is that would then lead me to dark times, because I would go from, I established that connection with him, but then the connection became so personal that, you know, this man was, like I said, I'm with him every second of every day, like, for everything, more than anybody, you know, more than the significant other. And then on top of it, like, my name is being constantly thrown in songs. So, like, this man's uplifting me and creating like a brand equity to me as a personal brand. I'm not looking at it at that at that time. That's just is what it was.
I need to go re-listen to some of his songs, man.
I mean, there's a lot of them, but truthfully, what that did was, because I was still so young and so lost, like, all my passion, like, that gave me the confirmation of everything I need. Because then the moment that, you know, I would grind with him, I built that relationship, we connected. And then it wasn't about 2-3 months later, he had now he's got labels at his door. So, like, I was there right before when it was like fully independent. And then 2 months later, you know, he's got Young Money, Cash Money wants to sign him, and he's in a bidding war with Atlantic Records. So, and I'm right there in the middle, you know, and then now we're talking about a tour and stuff. And I'm also going to college. So the moment that the labels became a conversation, that was, to me, at that time, because, you know, in my head, that's how it goes in the movies. You know, you sign, you get the big deal. We just all, you know, so, like, the moment that was a conversation, you know, I dropped out of college and was like, yo, college will always be there, but, like, what I'm about, like, this is my moment, right?
100%.
But what happened ultimately is, there were so many great experiences and connections that would, like, come along the next, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of, like, his career, and me being next to him and, like, creating content for him. And then my content would evolve and I would get better as a creator. And then I would meet other creators that were more established and I would connect with them and build relationships. And there was so much positive, but I became so numb to that and started to, like, lose track of who I was as a person, and started to become more of this identity of, like, you know, this character that, you know, is in the songs. You know, if I go to a concert with him, not only are they asking him for the picture, but people are asking me for the picture. If I stop at a gas station in the middle of, like, Nebraska, like, there'd be, like, people asking me for pictures just because they were, like, I'm telling you, it felt unreal at the time, but it was like, there were,
that's great. I mean,
that was creating a big ego for me.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I didn't consciously feel like I was being malicious or anything, but I definitely would, like, transform into this character and get further away from, like, my genuine self. to this person I was becoming. And I was at a critical age too, where like, you know, you kind of find yourself trying to become a man and just trying to figure it out. You know, I didn't really have any support system because I kind of left everyone back home because, you know, I'm like, well, they didn't believe in me in the first place. So I got these guys and they believe in me. And, you know, this is just what it's going to be.
So almost like an artist, you know how, and I'm not sure nowadays, but I remember back 10, 15 years ago, artists were coming out with alter egos. You know, Beyonce, Sasha Fierce, they have all these different egos that I think even Nelly had 2 different albums. It was like the clean and the naughty version, or the nice and the naughty version in one of his, I think it was Pimp Juice. But anyway, they had these, you know, the alter ego. So it's almost like you were developing an alter ego.
100%. And I'm a Gemini too. So that's like a.
Oh, that's curious.
Like I said, when I'm in a fearful position, like I can operate socially as if you would never know. But if you dig deep, you know, like to the conscious, like this might just be coming out of fear and me just trying to fit in and connect. You know what I'm saying? That's
my mom is a Gemini too, huh?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's curious. That's so curious. Yeah, and I do understand. I because that happens with me too. It takes me a second or two. So this might be a little of a shocker because I never told you, but over the last few months, I've been doing a lot of research. I'm 99% sure I'm undiagnosed ADHD with a little hint of autism. And one of the big things that they talk about is masking, because there's something that calls you into the world, but you don't want to be authentically you because you don't know how that person is going to be treated. So you mask in order to be in the environment. So it sounds like you were masking, you were becoming something, and that's something. Did you not like? You noticed this identity, and then please continue.
I was masking heavily. I loved it in the beginning, but then just like I just noticed over time, like you know 3-4 years go by, and it's just like I just noticed like my relationship with my family just wasn't like what it once was. I noticed that like I would eventually just like essentially screw over the relationship that I was in this entire time, living this life on this road. So it's like the little bit of foundation and support that I did have to allow me to just be me and just dream big. I would almost like I would almost destroy it over time. So by the time I would destroy it, then I would come to this moment of like, man, I start to blame myself, and then I would go into this victim mentality. So I guess I'm gonna try to speed the timeline up, but also give a little more detail. So I would work with Kevin for
take your time.
Build a lot of relationships. And then I would get to a point where like I had so much confidence because I was this masked character, but I also like I'm in the industry and I have like real contacts and like I'm getting better at creating. So I would then have to make a conscious decision to walk away from Kevin's situation, because I had this my dream was to be like the movie director, like a Director X or somebody, or like a Colin Tilley. But I came up in an era of like YouTube where it was like you could just be this cameraman. I wanted to be like this big production, like I wanted to have a crew. Like I never ever wanted to do anything myself personally ever. Right. And that was just like something I would always have to do until I could acquire leverage to maybe put someone in position to do that for me, and then I'd go do another thing. I would have to find that out later, but that was always my vision. And I realized real quick once we got with the labels had their own budgets, they had their own politics, they had their own video commissioners. So if Kevin had a big single coming out, the label was going to pick the person to shoot the video. Kevin, maybe technically he could have fought for me to do it and maybe allocated the budget towards me, but I don't blame him. I totally understand. Like he's fresh in it too, so he wants to work with the best. So it's like I understood my role. But I had to make a conscious decision, or I chose to make a conscious decision of like, I don't want to just be known to be the guy that runs with Kevin Gates. Like I want to create a brand, and I was already doing it. So I met a film group named Motion Family throughout this time, and they were really big in the industry. They did a lot of stuff for Def Jam, a lot of stuff for Lil Boosie. They shot Trinidad James when he came out, that All Gold Everything video. They shot that. They've done a lot of, they're legends in this game. And they were so cool. They reached out to, well, I made the conscious decision to walk away. So then I would walk away and be like, all right, well, now what? Now I got to go to work. So I also even moved to Atlanta at the time, like with no, I had a brother that was living out there. He let me crash. And I had no, like, I had some people I knew. That was like the mix. Atlanta was starting to form into like what it's become today, which is like the New York of hip hop, like is now Atlanta. So I just knew like I needed to be close. I needed to be on the scene. I took that risk. I moved out there with like no plans of nothing. Motion Family called me probably a month later, and they reached out and offered me the opportunity to go on tour with Big Crit. And that was incredible because that was like, that was big because I know, you know, some people might feel like Kevin's bigger, but at that time, like Crit had like a real budget. You know, we was on a tour bus. You know, with Kevin, we was in Toyota Sequoias. Crit had a real tour bus. We had like real, we were performing at like real like amphitheaters. It was overseas. We'd be in Canada. I mean, it was like a real tour experience, and I'd never experienced that. So I'm very grateful for that, and that was cool. And that was another moment of like confidence of like me stepping out and then like proving people wrong again. Because that was always the narrative I created in my head, was like, I'm gonna prove them wrong, even though like people probably wasn't paying that much attention to me, to be honest. You know, I would then go do that. I would try to brand build, and in the midst coming out of that, that's when I started to just like hit this age of understanding and realizing like I was saying, I had a foundation that was able to, I feel like I owe my core foundation, when you rewind back to like me being that kid that's just was so passionate and dreaming and just genuine and was like and wasn't essentially scared to just like humiliate himself and go do that. I feel like I only was even confident to do that because of the foundation I had, meaning like, you know, I had my relationship at that time. So it was like, as long as she supported it, then like, I didn't care what nobody else felt, you know what I'm saying? And I had my family. So fast forward, all of that started to kind of crumble. You know, the relationship would go away, the family would become distant. And because of that, that once that foundation broke, is like, I didn't feel like that same person. And I started to genuinely feel like, you know, like lost in the sense of like, I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't even know what I want from it. And honestly, like emotionally, I just felt like I didn't want anything. And I keep in mind, like I said, I'm not taking care of myself at all. Like I'm probably like 90 pounds, like I eat horrible. I mean, it's just all bad. So, you know, I could reflect now, and there's a lot of variables that, you know, you want to take care of yourself, you know what I'm saying? And you want to keep your hormones in check and your energy levels right. And, you know, you want to get your sleep, you know. We wasn't doing none of that. It was just like grind until you crash. And I had a crashing moment. And on top of it, I was never like, throughout all of this, I was always so natural at establishing connections and creating opportunity, but I was never natural when it came to like finances, as far as like financial literacy. So throughout this entire time, any money that I would establish, like, you know, I had good intentions. If I made money, I'd be like, yo, let's, you know, first thing first, like, is there any way I can dump it back into the business? Not from a tax incentive standpoint, just from like, is there anything that could help me level up, that could give me more confidence? Because that's really all it was, just a big chase. And then if that wasn't the case, then, you know, it would have got blown on, you know, God knows what. I mean, there was a point, you talk about masking, there was a point when like, I'm in California, Rodeo Drive, Versace, shopping and buying the same jewelry that Kevin's buying. I mean, it can't get no sillier than that. Like, this man's making 20 times of what I make. You know what I'm saying? So it was just like, the financial literacy aspect didn't exist. So even though I was connecting dots and creating opportunities, there was no, I lacked the business understanding. I lacked the financial understanding. So there was, you know, it just got to a point of like, all right, I'm hitting a ceiling. Emotionally, I'm crashing. I'm lost. And then at the same time, this was like a big loser moment for me, because I would then look at everybody else. You know, now I'm like 23, and I look at all the other kids that's 23, and they're like working offshore, and they make like, you know, $800 a week, and, you know, consistently. And I'm like, that's got to be nice, dude, because I'm out here just like, I get it, it's gone, and I get it, it's gone. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. And at this point, like, I really started to give up and convince myself that like, I just wanted to live a normal life. I just wanted a check that came. I just want to be a normal person. I wanted a relationship again. I didn't want to like be this ego anymore. So like, I completely checked out of all of it. I even moved to Lafayette, Louisiana, during the time just to like not be at my hometown, just to avoid any humility of like my own ego, like self-checking, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then it's crazy to fast forward it some. I would then spend, in hindsight, reflecting, I would spend that time in Lafayette. That's when I started learning about like, well, that's when I found powerlifting. So that started to teach, like that one thing was the first thing to like allow me to start like even paying any attention to what I was eating. Granted, even that wasn't healthy, but it's still like that was the birth of discipline for me. Was like, all right, I don't have nothing going on. I'm a normal person now. I'm taking a normal job, and I'm just like this new identity that I've recreated. I mean, like literally changed the Instagram name, like fully new, submerged new, like I'm starting over. I'm just the normal guy now. And when I'm not working, I will go to the gym, and I found a lot of peace in that. And it also that's literally where I learned everything as far as discipline, because that was when I realized like, oh, and then you put the reps in. Even though I had the discipline, obviously, if as you tell the story, but that's when I started to like peel back layers of it and to really start understanding. This was also around the same time I like discovered Joe Rogan's podcast. So like now I'm like learning about shit that I never in my life even thought I'd be interested in, while also like working out and eating more.
Right.
Now I'm caring about how I perform in the gym, so I'm getting more sleep. You know what I'm saying? It's like all these little variables just started to like change me over time, man. And they really did. And honestly, through all of that, there was this part of me that I never felt right or content, because I knew like I was living this fake recreated life. When it's like I still knew like there's something else out there for me, and this is not what God wants me to be doing, but I'm trying to force it. You know what I'm saying?
So it's so curious. There's this quote I saw the other day. I made it as a post. I want to read it now. It's by Friedrich Nietzsche. I probably pronounced it wrong, but he's a philosopher from back in the day. The snake which cannot cast its skin has to die. As well, the minds which are prevented from changing their opinions, they cease to be mind. So I'll read it again for the listener. The snake which cannot cast its skin has to die. As well, the minds which are prevented from changing their opinions, they cease to be mind. So what I get from that is exactly what you ended up referring to. Is you had this identity, you didn't want to live in this identity anymore, so you had to cast it aside. And when you do, who are you? You're with this person for so long, then you have to create who this person is going to be and this new person is going to be. And then from there, it's like, do I like this person? Do I like the void of the identity that I was? No. So then now I'm going to change that. And then you start to move into something else. You start to move into something that you enjoy a lot more, right? So it's was Lafayette the time that you had your routes as well? Because I remember back in the day. Okay.
Yeah, so that was my normal job.
Okay, that was the normal. Okay, so you had that going on, and that I remember started to do well after a while. Your dad mentioned it once or twice, and then we talked, and it grew. And I remember with powerlifting, it was kind of the same thing. You got a lot stronger, and then you were meeting different. I remember you meeting different powerlifters, and then really starting to participate and grow. And then from there, it's interesting that developed into something as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, man. It's like, I just noticed I was still working out those same muscles. And I don't mean like physical muscles. I mean the sense of like, all right, well, I'm this new character, so I'm gonna just mind my business and be normal. So let me just go to my gym and let me do, I like this powerlifting thing. Let me do this powerlifting thing. And then the next thing you know, it's like, wait a minute. Now I'm flying to California and I'm like linking up with one of the best, like, elite level powerlifters. Like, it was just like, I just noticed, I just saw what was right in front of me. It's like, dude, why was I blessed with this gift to be able to like, if I see something and there's a culture and a community tied to it, and if I want to go there, I could just connect every time. And it would happen so natural, even in this phase of life where it's like, I'm not even necessarily trying to do that because I don't have any gain from it. You know what I'm saying? Outside of like, I was just genuinely being interested. And I could never run away from the fact of how obvious that was in my conscious, you know what I'm saying? So I ultimately what changed everything in the trajectory of everything was during this time, I would start to morph into this new version of myself that I was more happier with, in a sense. While I did have that void of like this life I walked away from, I was starting to like actually be more of a genuine person, and I was getting better. it was evolving. And once I got to a point with enough like base, once my base was strong enough again, you know, I had built, you know, rebuilt that relationship with a significant other. Also at this point in life, that's who my wife is now currently. So she, you know, dating her came with a child, you know what I'm saying? So now I'm this new version of myself that's also a dad, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I was digging it. I really liked it. So I was just trying to morph into this person that I felt like I should be. And once I built that foundation strong enough again to where I could like go back out and fly, the first thing I did was that's when I created Chumps Apparel Co., which essentially it was just my way of saying like, all right, look, I'm back. I want to get creative again. Like I know I'm not just a consumer, like consumer shell that I'm living in. Like I know like what I have inside of me, obviously because of my history. Although no one in that town had a clue.
It should be advantageous, really.
Yeah, for sure. So that for me was just like, I want to create again. So this is going to be my first shot back at it. And, you know, I was always into culture and hip hop, and, you know, the way you dress and, you know, having a good outfit on and just feeling good, and just kind of carried over to your confidence. And that's just a thing in that world. And I just wanted to bring it into, you know, the powerlifting world. At that time, it just did not exist whatsoever. Nowadays it's changed a lot. But this was way before streetwear even like ever crossed with fitness and at all. You know what I'm saying? So it
was really just the bodybuilders that had the fashion, and it wasn't even really fashion. It was just
really fashion. They were just like, you know,
how bodybuilding culture.
Show off, you know, which made sense in their world. But to me, it was just like I wanted something that I could rock in the gym and feel good at, but also like if I got to wear it to my friend's kid's birthday party, I could look clean too.
Yeah.
So that's essentially like what birthed Chumps, and that's how like the look and all of that came out. And that was me again spreading my wings, trying to go back to my root as a creator. You know what I'm saying? Because that's really what I've realized over all of this time. Like I am a creator in whatever box you want to put it in. It's just something that I naturally do. I like taking something from nothing and then just like giving it life, you know what I'm saying? And then like creating a wave behind it and just kind of like, you know, running with it. And so during that time of me doing that, you know, now I was starting to think like, all right, well, now I'm starting to feel like I felt a little bit back then. It was like, maybe this is like this is where it's all going to go. And this is where I'm stepping into. And sure enough, like music wasn't even on my mind. And honestly, I come across on Instagram this kid with long orange hair, and he was an artist, and he was putting out all this music. And I came across his profile, and he looked so familiar. And then it clicked on me. I'm like, this is a kid that literally like 10 years ago, when I was like in my prime with Kevin Gates, this was like a kid that would always tweet me. Like this kid that I'm looking at now is like 20 something, but this is the same kid that would tweet me when he was like 12, 13 years old.
Really?
He was from Monroe, Louisiana, and he was the biggest Gates fan. And this dude would just like, you know, if he tweeted me, I'd tweet him back, and he'd be like, oh, this Cooley just tweeted me back. And that was the dynamic of the relationship. Well, fast forward, now I'm in Lafayette, and I come across his Instagram, and like this dude's like grown, and he's making like good music, like incredible music.
Yeah.
So something hit me right then and there that was like I said, I was already building some confidence of like turning my life back into where, you know, and taking back control of it, I guess, per se. But that set some kind of fire inside of me, because I would reach out to him, and I noticed he was recording at my buddy, you know, he would record at Basecamp Studios in Baton Rouge. And I knew Trey. I met Trey back when he was starting that studio, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, now I didn't watch Trey. that was another thing too, very important moment. Everybody that I watched from the beginning of like that time to then fast forward to, all these years later, anybody that I knew that stayed doing whatever it was they were doing, even people that I never would have thought they, had the skill set or the talent to, but 100% everybody that just stayed at whatever it was and never quit. I watched all of those people like transform into like big stuff. And Trey was one of them, like the studio to be. I'm like, wow, that's incredible.
Another golden nugget for you there, y'all. Stay in the MFing game.
That's a fact. That's the biggest takeaway that I could really take from my life and my story. Because that, granted, in my scenario, it's like God made it to be whatever it was going to be, and I guess He sat me down to get my mind right. But at the same time, it's like, I thought about that all the time. Like I made a conscious decision, like I'll never quit again after that. You know what I'm saying? I'll never. And so I came across Zach, and I was like, yo, like I want to pull up to you. Like, when's the next time you go to the studio? I want to pull up on you. Like I want to talk to you. I want to, like, do you have a label? Do you have a situation? Like, I just want to meet you. Like, this is incredible, this music. And he was like, like, oh, he still knew who I was. So he was like, dope. So we linked up, and we built a relationship, and I realized like this kid is just like trying to find his thing, just like I was then and still am now. So, in my head, I'm like, how could I, add value to this? And, at the time I was like, all right, well, I could be your manager, maybe. I don't know, but I'm gonna help you figure out a situation, and any way I can help you, like, that'll be dope. And if it comes back around, like, cool. So in that time frame, I would then start reaching out to connections that I made from 5-6 years. I have not talked to these people since I've like moved to Lafayette and just like shifted lives. So now I'm like dipping back into my bag of relationships from 4 or 5 years ago, and that I haven't. It's not like I've been sitting there watering the relationships. I just like cold cut everything. And one of those people was Menace. So when I hit up Menace, 4 or 5 years later, after not speaking, it was like as if we never stopped talking. And he was like, "What's up, man?" And that was super cool, because even I was like, wow, I'm surprised he like still likes me. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So, I would reach out to him. I would tell him about Zach and his music. He'd hit me back a couple of days later, showed a couple of his buddies, and he was like, man, I'm digging it. What are y'all trying to do? And I'm like, man, whatever we can do. So that would lead to like us all taking a bunch of label meetings, in a matter of weeks later. So like it started to feel crazy. I'm like, dude, is this what God wanted me to do? Is like to take the break and then to get right back into the game. But now instead of the cameraman, I'm the management. And right when I started thinking I was figuring it all out, it was like, no, that's not necessarily the case either, because the talent makes that decision, not you. So you don't actually have control of that.
Yeah.
So for whatever reasons, on the business side, Zach, he just wasn't comfortable with as far as like taking that next step, I guess. And he kind of like lacked the business understanding, which like understand, like he was still a kid at this time, and he's grown a lot since, but
yeah,
for whatever reason, just personally, it didn't feel right for him. So that just kind of left me thinking like, but I was still kind of mesmerized of the fact that like, yo, I found you, I made a call, we had some meetings, I connected dots, and that was like that. It was still like blowing my own mind. And that moment right there, I even though it didn't blow up into this perfect situation that I thought it would become. That moment right there changed my life, because in that moment I said, I'm never going back to where I was before, which is when I was just like quitting and just like trying to stay out the way. And two, like I understood my value in a sense. I understood and I also understood the value of relationships. Like it hit me right then and there more than ever. Like, because I could talk back in hindsight and you could see all the connections and connecting the dots, but that was never consciously on my head. That was just like, part of the mission. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know how to necessarily leverage those relationships and how to water them and how to groom them. You know what I'm saying? But that moment right there changed everything. And it showed me my power, and I really believed it. And it wasn't a matter of till, maybe 2 months later, I went to Menace again with a different business proposal. which was like a brick and mortar retail store. And he was like, yo, let's do it. And I was like, bet. And we created that store, and that store, that changed my life, because that's what gave me the, I executed that to the T. And that's what gave me like my freedom to be able to like, to get back in my bag per se. That's what gave me my, like, financially, that's what gave me the freedom to now figure out like, what is it that I want to do? Who am I? And honestly, like that moment moving forward, these past couple years has just literally been me on this mission of just trying to figure that out. Like, who am I? Like, what do I want to do? Like, what is the mission? Just still trying to figure it all out. I know outside looking in, it just always looks like a highlight reel, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, no, it's been a journey for sure. It's been a journey.
You do well with that, man, because you mentioned at the beginning that you're very much a visual person, and you do well showing the world what you want them to see, you know what I mean? And by keeping it cool. And I'm gonna reference Dave Chappelle again.
Good, there he's the GOAT.
All due respect and love. In one of his stand-ups, he mentions this book, Pimp: The Untold Story by Iceberg Slim. Have you read that book or heard of that book?
Yes.
You've read it too?
No. I've heard of this.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I would really encourage the listener and you to listen to it. You can find the first chapter, the first 15 minutes, and pretty much the whole book on YouTube. I highly encourage you to prepare yourself for some realness if you do decide to listen to this. But the reason why I bring that up is because of the demeanor that a pimp has to have in all situations. You can't allow yourself as that person to show any weakness. You can't allow any slip ups. You've got to be on top of your shit 24/7, 365, no matter what.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I saw a little post that said one moment of being undisciplined can destroy an entire lifetime. You can lose the game, whatever. And I thought to myself, can it really? And it was like, well, if you're in a relationship and you cheat, that's one moment. That person finds out, you're not able to work it out, boom, it's done, right? Yeah. You do something illegal in the financial business world, you get caught, boom, there goes you know what I mean? Like, it can happen. You get knocked out, your knee goes, you're a running back, you're done. Like, there's so many things, just that one moment of being undisciplined. And if you don't learn, you're bound to repeat. And what it sounds like to me throughout this whole journey, man, you never stopped learning.
Oh, no.
You never stopped learning. So we're getting kind of close to that time. I'd love to have you back for another talk just to explore more. But that's one of the biggest things that I got. And so I wanted to ask you hit on number one. You said the biggest thing that I learned from this is to stay in the game. So it's very encouraging, listener, that we're going to have a part two. So before we dive into talking about what that might be about, what are your top 3 to 5 lessons, not including what you said? So if number 1 was stay in the game no matter what is number 2, 3, 4, 5 maybe?
For me, always stay in the game. Obviously, that's number 1 for me. And I'm just gonna like dive into. I'm gonna try to answer this just based off like my personal experience or like
absolutely
what I could directly relate that from. Always staying in the game. Always being able to adapt and recreate yourself, and whatever that may look like for the person. Yeah. Because I mean that was a big one. Like being able to. You could come out big and do something great and everybody could watch you. And then if for some reason it doesn't work out, like, and you want to, like, that's still what people see. You know what I'm saying? So it's on you to figure that out and change that. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And I realize how powerful that is. And here's the hack. If you could just figure out how to genuinely be yourself at all times, then like that could just be a natural thing. You don't have to think about it. So, and that's something I've been on a journey as well. Yep. So I would say, being able to adapt and recreate yourself. And I would just highly advise you to try to do that from a genuine, just being yourself place. Always learning. Learning is I owe everything to learning and information. And the biggest thing that I personally have done to grant me any form of success in my life has been leveraging this informational age that we live in.
Yep.
I always have been like the YouTube nerd, before podcasts, I was constantly watching like radio interviews as if that was podcast. You know what I'm saying? So when podcasts came out, I was like, yo, this was meant for me. But all of these things are just form of communication that if you're like digging into the right people, you're going to learn like a lot, and you're going to learn like from different, areas and fields. And that was important. Because through that, like I said, I didn't go to no business school. So like the day that I started a business, like it was on me to go on YouTube and like try to rabbit hole and figure out like, what is financial literacy? What does that even look like? How does this taxes thing work? What kind of people should I hire? What is a CPA? And, so definitely, I guess to bring it around, stay in the game, always adapt and recreate yourself. Don't stop learning. A big one, and I try to help a lot of people that I could see it presently in, is the mindset of there's a book called Who Not How. And honestly, like if you could just like look into that book, and that could kind of answer this better than I'm gonna try to describe it. But the mindset of like how, like if you have a dream or there's something you want to do, and you're going to sit here and you're going to think about how you're going to do it, and how do you do that, and what does that look like? And you might talk yourself out of doing it because now it seems too hard for you because you're trying to figure out how you're going to do it. But my mindset naturally has always been like, if it wasn't automatically a how I could do it, it was always who can do it. And then that's where my natural skill of connecting and creating those relationships. That's a very, very, very important one. If you have like any, if you're a high performing individual and you have like a dream or a vision of scaling, whatever that may be in your world that you're in, I'm confident to say that like you can't do it by yourself. You're going to need to like build a team around you. You're probably going to need to build a team around you before you can even feel like you deserve a team around you, which probably means you're going to have to risk like increase your risk of like maybe what you're having to sacrifice to acquire that team, whether it be money or time or exchange for services or whatever. But like you don't become $1 million a year business by acting like $100,000 a year business. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that it just always stuck with me. So that's an important one. Who not how, like that, having that kind of mindset. Man, there's so much, and I'm still learning so much, to be honest, bro. But I think I just think a big takeaway is like, I don't care what you're doing and how different one person's journey might look to another's, or how cooler ones might look, or if one person look like it's more lucrative than the others. Like, if you're on a journey of trying to do something that you want to do, and that means like, and you want to have control of it, that's something we all have in common. And the only way you get to that finish line is the moment that you realize there is no finish line. That is, I describe it like I'm walking down my life is like the path that I chose in life is I want to walk down this yellow brick road. But it's a sick thing because this road never stops. So if I don't find how to love the process of taking this walk, and I don't like take care of myself to fuel myself to continue to walk, and if I don't find my own like genuine love in this space of walking, well, then at some point I'm going to be so tired of walking that I'm like, why did I even get on this road anyway? Because you don't have to take this road. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is high risk. It's you work more. You know what I'm saying? Like it's hard to crack. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so many variables to it. It's And that's another thing. Like it's not as simple as like, this is the thing you do and you just do the thing. Like it'll never be that simple. If you think it's that simple, then like you probably still have a lot to learn. Because like all the stuff that you preach, I mean, that really like dials in on like what it's really about. And it's about all the other variables outside of the thing you do. And who's the best at balancing that and keeping all of those variables intact at like healthy levels, while also still learning about all the variables, while also still growing all those variables, while also never getting too lost up in one or the other. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. It
comes into there if somebody could translate it.
It very much does, because what I hear from you is one thing is it's not for everyone. And this journey, entrepreneurship, it's not about necessarily making money. Entrepreneurship is about discovering and creating oneself. That's the journey. And that takes effort, that takes love, that takes care, that takes humility, that takes all the variables that you mentioned. And you think the entrepreneurship journey is about making money, but it's about developing yourself to become the type of person who's able to serve others at a high capacity level and performance while still taking care of oneself.
That's it. And then the moment you can unlock that, it's like God at that moment decides like, you shall bear fruit from all of this serving, since like now that you finally understand that this is not even about you, this is strictly about serving everyone else. And like the moment you really grasp what you just said, that's when God like comes down and is like, here, bear fruit from this. You know what I'm saying? And that is a disconnect of those two places that some people never make it to that, because they were walking on that path and they were just fed up and they just threw everything down, and they're like, you know, they couldn't figure that part out, but that part is everything. And I'm still on that, you know what I'm saying? I'm still living that, I'm still in that journey. But I will say, from finding, as I grow and evolve and I find that out and I understand that framework, now everything is just starting to flow a lot easier. And, you know, it's just like, I get it, you know?
So there's this story that I read the other day, an experiment that was done with a locked door, and they had something like 28 adults go, and I'm sure there's more to the experiment, but they go and they try to open this door that was locked to get into this room. Out of 28 adults, only 2 could open the door. And the reason is because when the adult would go up into the door, they'd shake, you know, like loosen the knob, try to open it. It must be locked. I can't get in. Only 2 adults were able to open that door, right? Then they had 28 kids go and try to open the door. Guess how many kids opened the door?
28.
28. Because as soon as they couldn't open that door, they tried pushing, they tried twisting, they tried everything they could to get that door open. Because, and this is the reason why they said in the experiment, they weren't working from their limitations. When we grow up, we have these limitations that are placed on us and we believe them.
Yes.
But if we, and this is because we're both Christian, I add into this, if we do what Jesus says, if we just keep that innocence and that childlikeness, you don't have the limitations and you have the imagination and you're willing to look at things from so many different angles and perspectives that you can figure it out.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't work this way, I can look at it like this. I can do that. This is what I'm doing. My method can change. My result will be this, but my method can be whatever it needs to be to have that result.
Yeah, man.
And what most people forget is third time's the charm, right? So you just got to keep doing it. With that, my brother, I can't wait to have you back, because we're going to dive into the real juice. I so much appreciate you being here, you know, spilling everything out. Am I your first podcast host?
Yeah, sure.
Shit. So I'm the first, you know, like
this is gonna be a big one, like at some point.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to do too, man, is I wanted to, because I know who you, like, I can see you. I can see your energy. I can see you. I know what you're going to do in the world. You're going to create a huge impact. You're going to serve a lot of people, and a lot of people are going to learn from you, right? Like, I see you kind of as like a mini Rob Dyrdek right now. And
I love that, by the way. I love that. Like I study that man. Like literally.
I know you do. That's why I see it. And I see him and I see what you do. And I see how you're taking on his traits and his characteristics. So like I see what you're doing and I know who you're going to be. And I wanted to get all this out so then people aren't like, well, who the fuck's Colin? Who's he doing this? What's he doing? It's like, no. Listen to this story and you're going to get the gist. Then you can ask him what you need to ask him. So hopefully that has it. Any feedback or last minute thing, not last words to say for this podcast to leave our listener with?
Well, honestly, man, you just what I can say, and you just reminded me about bringing up Rob Dyrdek, when you asked me about like, you know, what are some important takeaways? Another one that's extremely important that I'll leave everybody with is you have to, one thing I've definitely learned is like you have to grow into, you have to, before you can do anything, you have to visualize at some point like what it is that you want to be, like what your life looks like how much money do you have? Do you care about having any money? Like what, you know, what does your physique look like? Maybe you don't care about what your physique looks like. What are you happy do, you know, whatever this ultimate end vision looks like for your life, like you have to kind of figure that part out, which is a journey of its own. But then also you have to like reverse engineer and design your life into that so that you can grow into that person. So if you're out there and you're listening and you might have this vision of something, but you know, like maybe the life that you actually live might not warrant you growing into that, whether it be you have a vision of X, but your friendship circle only maybe fuels the complete opposite spectrum, if that makes any sense. Then at some point you have to do an audit and realize like, you know, you got to redesign your life to fit into this mold of what it is you actually want and then grow into it. So if that requires you to like have to leave where you're from or like maybe switch up friendship circles or, you know, just like change, it could change from like, look, I shouldn't listen to this music, but instead I'm gonna read this or whatever it may be. You definitely have to be conscious of auditing all the data in your life, like literally, and just making sure that all of it is in alignment with whatever that vision is that you have for yourself. So that's really it. Thank you for having me on. If you bring me on a second time, we could definitely peel back layers. It'll be exciting for sure. This was fun. So thank you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, it's a when, not an if. It's a when. So there's a lot in you that can be shared and then that can impact and serve people. And I appreciate you coming on and then sharing that wisdom. I love you, man. I'm thankful for you. And I'm really elated that we are still talking all through these years. Cause y'all, when I'm getting a little emotional, I can feel it. When I see this dude, I see the kid across the street and me knocking on his door and saying, hey, Colin's mom, can he come over and play? Or can we play Pokemon? And she's like, I need to be out here to make sure that he makes the right trades. Or, you know, like I still see that childhood and to see how far you've come, how much you've learned and how we're on similar paths in that sense is just really amazing. So thank you, man.
Yeah, man. Yes, indeed.
All right, y'all. With that being said, have a wonderful one. You are unstoppable and we'll talk soon. Peace.